Welcome back, everybody, to another round of 0 Point Reviews with Kevin and Jeff. This time we are joined by a good friend of ours, Justin, from Star Wars Marvel Purist. Check him out on YouTube. We're also going to make him pimp out his channel by the end of the video. But Justin, welcome aboard. Tell everybody what you do and where they can find you right now, and we'll circle back around at the end.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. Appreciate it. Well, I basically cover authentic, original Marvel and Star Wars content. So like George Lucas, Star Wars, and the expanded universe, books, comics, games, everything. And then Stan Lee original Marvel comics. I mean, my cutoff's kind of like around 2010, because that's kind of when Marvel Comics kind of started doing all the reboots and all that. Like you'll find some good stories here and there, after the fact, but they're very few and far between. So.
Can I just interrupt really quick and say one thing?
Go right ahead, Kev.
I ended it one more day. Killed comic books for me forever.
Really? Yeah. With me, the Grant Morrison reboot of X-Men, like there's parts of it. It's like, that's been my whole thing on my channel too. I explain how like Fabian Nicieza and Scott Lobdell, even though they weren't as good at writing the X-Men as Chris Claremont, obviously, they definitely tried to carry the baton and keep those stories going and keep with the original, vision and all that. And it kind of ends with Grant Morrison. So,
yes, both times, like right after the movie came out, like completely changed everything, and not for the better.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, Sorry. It's nice to have another comic nerd on the show.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it was funny. I was watching was it your first or second live that you guys just did a couple weeks back? And you were talking about Marvel Knights, and I was just ready to drop a Marvel Knights video off one of my streams, so it was really funny.
Yeah, we had fun with that. Like we went for what? An hour and a half, just because we love talking about comics, and like the conversation went this way, conversation went that way, and that wasn't even a 0 Point review like this is.
Yep,
that's very true. I mean,
already on
Kevin's more the comic book guy than I am, and I like listening to Justin on his channel because I'm like learning so much, and I know I could check out like all the other channels too, and I usually do, but usually it's in the background. When it's Justin's videos, I'm a little more engaged. I'm actually paying attention to his videos. He's got some great graphics and stills going on, so the work he's doing is fantastic and fabulous. I highly recommend everybody go check out his channel, especially if you don't know anything. He's a great entryway into learning more about the good parts of Marvel and even Star Wars.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Hey, not a problem. So Justin, we're doing Event Horizon here. What's your first memory of this one?
Man, I still remember like the time that I went into the theater, actually, because this was just, the movie was just so awesome the first time I saw it. I couldn't believe it. And like we had talked the other day too, like when you rewatch it, it's almost like it's better every single time that you rewatch it, so yeah, just this was like the Sam Neill era too. Like, he had done Jurassic Park, but then he did In the Mouth of Madness, which a lot of people didn't know about, and is another one of my personal favorite like horror movies. And then this was like right after that as well. So yeah, I consider it like the Sam Neill era or whatever. And then Fishburne was really good in it too. So yeah, it was just all around awesome.
Yes. Larry worked very exceedingly well as the captain of the ship in this one, and as a character overall, I felt like this is where he showed he could maintain a lead in any sort of film he did, and then eventually he'd get to The Matrix, and then his career was like off sailing to brand new heights. Later on, John Wick as a kind of a secondary character, but he doesn't really need the lead too much these days, but he's very capable of it.
Yep. Yeah, he was good in Deep Cover too back in the day. That was a good, good one.
There you go. Kevin, what's your first experience with this one?
It was a very horrible night. Horrible. Anyway, I saw this the Thursday night before it came out. This was when I was still working at a movie theater, and all of my friends were like super excited to see this one, like thought it was going to be Alien or some shit. And my ex-girlfriend, who is also kind of like family to me at this point, because like we dated at 9 years old. So by 17, we were brother and sister. She was sitting next to me on this side, and her boyfriend was on the other side from her. My best friend was sitting in front of me. Eventually, he was the projectionist, so it's like he had to start the movie and then run down as fast as he could. And no one at all was expecting the movie to be what it was. At one point, there was a jump scare. I don't remember what the fuck it was, but Carla grabbed the arm in her hand so hard that it bled. Unfortunately, it wasn't her motherfucking boyfriend's arm. It was mine. And both of our moms are like, she loves you. I'm like, fuck her.
No, she hurt me. It's not that kind of relationship.
I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, hit him, hit Jeremiah, god damn it. But when, when it ended, my buddy Brian just had the greatest look on his face. The lights just came up and he goes, I don't like that bad movie. It made me poo. Oh, but god damn, I had the willies from that movie, because this is in 97. I'd pretty much given up on horror. I hadn't seen a good horror movie since maybe 92, 91, I think.
Yeah, horror was kind of falling. This was that kind of weird little well of abyss, I would call it, like a void, where's all the good horror movies? They're all tame right now, and they're not really doing much. But as we're going to find out with this movie in particular, a lot of the studios didn't really want the gore. They wanted everything else but the good stuff. And that started early in the 90s, and it carried through all the way till here. So it took the teeth out of a lot of good quality horror. Doesn't mean that there wasn't any good horror, but it seemed like every one of them, like say this movie, that had the foundation for a fantastic, scary fucking movie that would really grab you and be like, now that's a movie. They would take those kind of movies and take their teeth out. And ultimately you get, like, I wouldn't say like this movie, but you get a movie like, say, like Supernova with James Spader. Something that should be freaking badass that ends up being a piece of shit.
That was common in the 90s, though. The 90s put out a lot of pieces of shit. Like, that people thought were great at the time.
They were prevalent in the action genre a little more. Like everything had kind of like transferred from horror, especially like even Aliens is the 80s, but Alien is a horror movie. Aliens is more of like action sci-fi. But right. Yeah, in the 80s, they took way more risks, a lot of practical effects, but they didn't have like the budget and stuff. But it was all about gore, sex, all that kind of stuff in the 80s. And yeah, like you said, the 90s, they kind of started making it a little more generic.
In the 80s, like Paramount specifically hated Friday the 13th, but it made so much fucking money that they're like, let's keep doing it then.
Hell yeah.
Until part 5 anyway.
Yeah.
I had all the neighbors over. My mom didn't do horror, so she just would, it's the 80s. I was a boy. She's like, whatever. You want to rent that scary movie? I'm not going to watch it. So all the neighbors would come on over, It's funny because you talk to younger people now and they're like, well, Jason really isn't that good, Michael Myers. And I'm like, yeah, but, Jason was all about the TNA and the violence and shit. So if you're like a boy, like in the 80s or early 90s, that was all you needed. You know what I'm saying? Get a little TNA, a little bit of violence and slashing. Everybody's happy,
Kind of, yeah. Like it makes us sound like base creatures, but fuck. Yeah. Them are some of the best things in life.
The good old days. Yeah. My first memory of this was going to see it in the theater. I clearly had a different expectation for what this movie would be. I was one of those that, hey, this looks like Alien and Aliens, and this looks like this is going to be freaking awesome, because I'm a total science fiction nut job. And I love like space-based stuff, especially. And this movie, I went and saw it, and to be frank with both of you, I hated this movie walking out of it, feeling like, what the hell? This isn't what I wanted. This is stupid. I was bored half the time. It wasn't. I think looking back, what I really wanted was something scarier, not something so smart and cerebral. And so it wasn't until I got to like college, or a little bit, later on down the road, when I started to appreciate these kind of movies a lot more. And instead of, oh, hey, this isn't Star Trek. Oh, this isn't Aliens. I think I grew out of that. So the next time I watched it, I was like, I don't really want to watch this stupid movie, but I'll watch it. And I started to like it a little more. I'm like, okay, I think I get it. And rewatching this now again for the first time in a long time, this is the third time I've ever watched this movie. I can honestly say I really, really like this movie now. Borderline love it. I am ready to watch it again. So that's my little story. Is I hated this movie when it first came out, but then you learn also about what the studio did to this movie and what it was supposed to be. We would have gotten the movie that was to everybody's expectations, because they didn't market the shit out of this movie at all. They actually rushed this movie to the theaters because Titanic needed to get delayed by a couple of months. They thought this was going to be a summer blockbuster.
Paramount also thought that because they're the studio that brought you Star Trek, this was going to be Star Trek. And it most certainly is not that. It was not Alien. Like,
this should be modern Star Trek, god damn it.
Oh, if only. Like, no one expected to have to think, and unfortunately the way that the studio cut it made you have to think and kind of analyze the film to see the darker story that was in the 90 minutes that we got to see. Like, there was much more they were implying that was left in, but like the bulk of it, the meat and potatoes of it, the real scares and real gore and fright was removed, like in scores. Anderson hated it because he said he had to cut too much out. Like, he was really unhappy.
Cut like a half hour out.
Yeah, it's my understanding too. Like, a majority of the budgets, like the first 5 minutes or something like that, with the whole like the outside of the planet and space station and all that. Like, that's like a big chunk of the budget, because back then, that was they had to really focus in to do the CGI and all the stuff on that. Right. So then they had to just rely on practical and stuff for the rest of the movie.
And you know what? Thank God that they did. Yeah, that was a third of their budget, but the rest of their CGI was really on par with Deep Rising. Like,
and you're gonna make another goddamn fucking Deep Rising joke. God.
Like, I almost put arrows to point out what these things are. Like, of course, there's your Dixie cup.
Yep.
The same watch that Buzz Aldrin had going to the moon. and then a book way in the background there that's a autobiography on Paul Anderson, the man in the ledge.
It's the early edition audio tape.
I'm like, yeah, like, okay, that's funny. I get that. But like, most of the shitty CGI is all right in that picture. Like, they went practical after that for the most part. And it was really well done. It was edited really fast, really choppy in order to get that R rating.
Yeah.
Because it was just, they couldn't do anything to get away from NC-17.
Save yourself.
I loved them. Every character, like, is a representation of the actor playing them, because there was no character structure in the script. So like, they had to tell each of the actors, okay, come up with the backstory for yourself.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Well, they did a hell of a job.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sometimes when you give actors that kind of investment into their characters, it works. Other times it doesn't. But when you're working with pros, and we know who's on this movie, like, they're all pros. Like, it's very clear as day. Like, they took that opportunity and they went with it.
Yes, and I think everybody that signed on was very much behind Anderson. I don't think any of them were happy with the changes and the cuts that were happening daily, if not hourly, from Paramount. Like, Fish, was heckling the writer one day because like his ass was just getting beat in the big spacesuits, and the writer came walking by and he was like hollering at the guy, fake, but just like hollering at the guy, "You did this to me! You did this to me!" And it's like everybody was having fun with one another.
Yep.
In spite of the bullshit that they were having to go through, albeit the pain, physical pain from the stunts, or the frustration of having to work 7 days a week. Plus, they signed on to an incomprehensible script to work with one another, and that was what made the cast really good.
Yeah, I really like the cast in this. At first, some of the characters, I'm like, what are they aiming for here? It feels like they're trying to replicate the Alien and Aliens experience with the crew. But, when the formula works, it works. And they actually did a very good job in doing that in this movie. And you guys got a favorite character out of the group?
Oh, you go first on that one, Justin. You're our guest.
Oh man, I mean it's so hard. Like there's like you said with their ability to improv and everything. I mean they all did so well. Man, I don't know. I guess I would probably have to give it to Sam Neill's character for sure. I guess.
He puts
like I said, he
himself-
was really in his groove back then. That's like he was doing really good stuff. But yeah, I think he embodied the character really well.
I think so. I think he defined him a hell of a lot better than what was written, and made the representation of the darkness just truly frightening. Like he brings the fear in the movie.
Yeah,
Mine, however, was not Sam Neill. It was Jason Isaacs. I loved DJ. The doctor offering everyone a cigarette when they wake up. Like, I love him.
Then the other guy like offering coffee to everybody. I'm just offering coffee.
Something hot and black inside you? No? How about coffee?
And that's funny, and that kind of mirrors Alien also, right? Because the whole joke, like with that, well, Aliens, right, where they're joking around when they first come out.
Yeah,
kind of mirrors that as well.
Does anyone ever mistake you for a man? No. Have you?
Yeah.
Well, to Paul's credit, I think he was a big fan of Alien and Aliens, and that what led to a little bit of inspiration for this. But like, even like the ship design, it feels very unique and familiar. And even in a later film that Paul does, Soldier, he has callbacks to Blade Runner in that movie. So he's very much a fan of a lot of the movies that some of us grew up with or found in our childhood through the video store or on cable or whichever version of Blade Runner you might have ended up seeing of the 7 of them. I mean, I don't know, but he's a big fan of like all of these old genres. And I know what people say about him and, Resident Evil, whatever. We all understand the first one's probably the only best one and the rest of them are trash, but I like them all. But it's clear he's out to make fun movies, and you can't say he hasn't made a fun movie.
I've not had fun during one of his movies or throughout any of them. Like they're all typically pretty good popcorn flicks.
Definitely. I mean, you can't like knock Resident Evil on its success. I mean, it obviously did really well.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. Like the first one to me, kind of the same thing. The first one's a horror movie, even though they kind of have the convoluted story that's kind of mixed in there with it. But then they kind of turn into action flicks after. Like the second one, I guess, kind of still has that horror edge a little bit, but not quite like the first. But yeah, and then it's just whatever. But everyone wants to go see Mila Jovovich anyway, so it didn't really snub the sales or anything.
Yep.
Guilty.
Super guilty. I've been a fan of her since Fifth Element. So
You didn't see Return to Blue Lagoon?
I actually have not.
Don't. I think you can get put
I
on
was
the
gonna say,
government watch.
do I need to? I don't want to. That's my 7th level of hell. I get snapped.
The first one was nasty enough. Like, I just don't want to be put on a list or have to like register for seeing shit like that. No. But anyway, yeah, Back to Fifth Element, much better.
Fifth Element. But I gotta admit, my favorite character is probably Captain Miller. I really like how Larry really stepped up his game for this movie, because before this, he didn't really have these really great roles, or at least roles that I could get invested in. This is one where he really excelled, and I felt like he's a good lead and a good balance against Sam Neill. Because while you have the dark force taking over the ship, and the ship's somewhat alive in and of itself, your hero is only as good as his bad guy. And the only thing he could actually play off against was Sam Neill. And so you got a great heel turn by Sam, for a wrestling term, everybody. And then you got, Larry, or I know we say Larry ever since we had somebody on our show calling him Larry. It's like, I can't stop calling him Larry. But Captain Miller, like, he really grew in strength as the movie went on. He stayed focused, even though he was being tormented himself. He was able to maintain that focus and keep pushing forward, and he drove everybody to push to try and survive. And while he ultimately makes the biggest sacrifice to take down the Event Horizon, he goes down without having gone over to the dark side completely, or having completely lost himself or lost his confidence. He's strong to the bitter end, and I think it's a great character arc for him. And balancing off of Sam Neill as Dr. Weir was excellent. They had great banter, great chemistry abound. So you can't go wrong picking any character in this movie to find something you can get into. And everybody feels like they're just playing an extension of themselves. So it's really easy to get into the characters and chemistry of this movie and feel like you're watching something rather interesting unfold. It may feel like a little disjointed at times, but I think that actually helps the movie without overcomplicating things. It kind of lets your mind fill in the blanks a little bit. So even though the studio cut the shit out of this movie, I still feel it pulled together in the end. And that's why it's had such a cult following. I got to say, I think it's largely from the story and the fantastic characters.
I think so. This movie will genuinely scare you. And that was something that just wasn't happening in the 90s. And I don't mean to replot that again, but this swerved people. It made you think it was going to be Alien. And it was a lot more like Shining, Exorcist type movie. And
yes, yep.
And that was the first time watching this. The only other time I could really say I experienced a movie that just totally swerved me was The Matrix, where you're just kind of like, what just happened here?
Oh yeah, the very first one. I think we all experienced what the hell did I just watch? Yeah, like let's go again.
And it's no irony that the consulting writer, I can't say consulting writer, but consulting story contributor was Clive Barker. Anderson went straight to Clive Barker when it came to like just the images of hell, sadism, masochism, and all sorts of shit. So it's like you do see bits and pieces of Hellraiser in this movie. Like it's very much there. But again, they cut it so fast, and it's like strobe light flashes. It's a cock tease is what it is.
Cock tease.
Like there's like 10 minutes cut out. That's got to be like a snuff film for this movie. It really is.
Yeah, you're talking about the orgy scene.
Yeah, orgy, debauchery, murder. Yep.
Cannibalism.
I gotta say, I forgot about that rewatching this time. When that scene came up, I kind of jilted at the same time the second female that was watching the on-screen footage. I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Hello.
Yeah. That was the part they had to cut, right? So it wasn't NC-17.
Yep.
You know, that sucks for flicks. Like anytime something gets NC-17, it is that death knell, of course. But it's like movies that get NC-17 that do well are usually stupid as fuck. This wasn't stupid. Like
Showgirls.
It's got silly moments, but it's really not stupid at all. Like in its entirety, I'm sure it was fucking thought process, terrifying, and survival to a point, having to get through it yourself. And that's, as a director, I'm sure that's what he really wanted to do.
Yeah, and you can see elements of this movie in newer movies too, like that one Life or whatever with Ryan Reynolds and Rebecca Ferguson and all of them, where they get the organism on the ship, but they have aspects where they're trying to get back in, like shit like that, where the creature's on the outside and all that. And so it's like almost pulled from this, where he's trying to rush back to get to Mr. What's his name? Mr. Jason or whatever the guy's name was. And he's trying to get back out from the outside of the ship. Or get to the outside of the ship before he gets fucking trapped out there. But yeah, you see him play back again.
Do I have that here somewhere? I think I do.
You usually have some slides, Kevin.
I do, but it's gonna say it cut one out on me again, did it? Nope. Here it is.
Mr. Justin.
Yeah. Baby Bear's eyes exploding again. Strobe effect, but I've got a really good pause clicker. That the blood floating around in anti-grav was just
Mm-hmm.
It was
nice.
That
was well done.
Although, where is it? I absolutely loved where they turn the gravity on and everything falls to the ground. You just want to hear somebody going, "Fixed it!"
Yeah, when they transitioned back to the real stuff, it was like, ooh, excellent. Because before that, it's like, man, that looks so freaking fake. And then the second gravity's back on, it's pure liquid and it's real liquid, and then the body breaking because it's frozen. Oh, that was fantastic.
Oh, yeah, the globs in the core chamber. That was
the core chamber, one of the best set designs I think I'd seen in a spaceship in a long time.
This was beautiful.
That was dope, dude.
Its simplicity was beautiful. Its movement was extremely beautiful. How it images your eye and the blackness therein. Like, they made statements with this damn thing.
This was a 2001 kind of monolith type moment is what this was when this first came on for me.
See, now I've never seen that, so I don't have that comparison. That would
have about 2 pots of coffee when you're ready to watch that movie. It's really good, but it's the pacing is so slow. Like, you got to watch that when you're wide awake. Do not watch that if you're remotely tired.
If
I could argue the same thing for this movie.
Okay, so I'll give you that. I can probably get rid of this. I'll give you that, because go on. There is so much cut, and they did have to put so much in within that 90 minutes that it's very rushed. And that does hurt the film in some way. Like, there's not a whole lot of backstory to be had. The exposition is very quick, albeit good.
Right.
And it would have been nice to see Weir's dissension into possession a little bit better.
Yeah, that happened like largely off screen, it felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah, in moments like this where you get a brief flash of his wife showing up and then disappear.
Is that Coolio?
No.
Don't be a menace while drinking your juice in the hood.
This chick gets super fucking horny and real hot and turns into the devil, and he starts freaking out trying to get away. She's like, "You ain't going nowhere."
He's like, I'm pregnant already. He goes, "How do you know?" "Well, I already got 13 kids or whatever.
Fuck this shit.
Fuck this ship. I love the fucking the engineer's comment saying, "I don't know this, but what I can tell you is this ship is fucked."
Yeah.
And Sam Neill going, "Thank you for that very scientific."
One thing I liked is within the dialogue, there was a whole lot of like natural swearing and never felt like it was forced or put in there. I would like to think there was some ad-libbing, but who knows? But
it wasn't like cringe
I had
at
so much
all.
fun.
Yeah, it was very natural, and on the dialogue too. Yeah, I liked the whole explanation of traveling through the wormhole and all that stuff, and the way he's showing them with the folded paper and through space and time, and it lays out at least the world and the premise that they're operating on for the movie.
You fold space like a piece of paper, and you go through it like this.
Yeah.
Not in the titty. Titty and the foot. Oh, now it's useless to Tarantino.
Yeah.
If it's
Wasn't
a
it like a
Tarantino
pinup
flick,
too?
then I'm going to do this. No script.
And now everything's just fucked. So what we don't always see in this movie is Weir had no idea what he'd built. Like, he took this material and basically it created the core around it. So he didn't know what it was, where it was going to go to, where it came from. Like, he did the science thing where it's like he made something because he could without knowing what the ramifications were going to be. And I think in part of that, you see his wife, her suicide was part of his penance for that, I think.
And then trying to finish the work till we could reunite with her. On some levels, you could look at this as like when Oppenheimer just came out last year. This almost feels like a variation on that sort of theme of, I'm creating this device. I know it's going to be bad, but I don't know if it's going to be really that bad. But he felt so confident. Hey, I'm doing something to transcend the heavens. Oh, you did something far, far worse. And now everybody's going to be screwed, because I don't know if we want to talk about the ending or not yet, because it's not over with the ending. There's still a bit of the event horizon still out in space. And they can get all the data off of that if all the computers were networked like they told you in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, any part from that ship, like the CD drive that she pulled out,
Yeah,
is a living piece of the ship, and the ship is very much alive. And I don't know if people actually got that throughout the film. Like, they try
Right.
telling you several times, and it's heavily implied, but I don't know that they actually come out and say it, that the ship is a living creature. It's terrifying. The movie is terrifying because it wasn't a slasher film. It made you think, and it had those horrible, like, graphic images.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite images early on is when they power up the event horizon for the first time. And it's like, with the music, the score, how they shot that, how they did it in post with the CGI, however they put all of that together, that was the chef's kiss moment of the movie for me, because it's like, oh shit, you just turned the power on. Oh, fuck. They are so fucked. And they were, because you turned the power on. You're now on the ship. There's no escaping the ship right now. And the thing is awake. You woke the beast.
Yeah, and once it tastes Justin's soul, like, yeah, it's alive and it's hungry. It wants more, and it feeds off of the fear. Everyone sees their death just before they die, so it shows you your worst fear and how you're going to die from that worst fear, and it shows it to you just before it happens. So it's like double the terror for that victim, like Peter's.
Yeah, and it's too late. There's no turning back. It's kind of like another Alien reference, but when Ripley goes to destroy the ship, and then she's got to go back, and then she tries to stop the self-destruct, and you can't. It's the same thing. Like, you're in that position once they turn the event horizon on. That's it. And then conveniently, they have to abandon the Lewis and Clark because the hull breach. And then there's 20 hours of breathable air. So yeah, again, a lot of parallels again to Alien and Aliens.
Yeah, did that bother you at all, or do you think that was enough of an homage without feeling like it was?
Oh yeah, no, it didn't. To me, it didn't feel cheap or anything. It's just I didn't even probably connect it the first time, second time, maybe even watching it. But obviously, I've seen it a lot of times now, so seeing it again like that, it definitely gave me memories, like nostalgia type thing. But again, it wasn't like cheap fan service. Look, we're wannabe alien movie, because obviously this is totally different.
Oh yeah, I only bring it up because it's like I only kind of noticed it this last time I watched, and we keep bringing up Alien and Aliens because those are two fantastic movies in and of themselves, and it's just I just wanted to check and see what everybody thought, but we all seem to be talking happily about the about the homages in the movie. So
oh yeah, I mean this movie, from what I understand, it's the main inspiration for Dead Space, the video game, the horror space video game. I think it's a combination. I think they say Alien, Resident Evil, and Event Horizon, but yeah, yep.
I got all my Dead Space stuff up on a shelf I can't entirely reach, so I'm not doing that because I might drop it.
Well, that's
Now, I'm
Isaac
sure
up there
when
in the background.
Well, yeah, the helmet back there.
Yeah,
I'm sure when
I
you're
love
playing
this
it, though,
Spanish
you get that nostalgia though when you're playing it, like after watching the movie again. I bet if you went back
God.
and played it, you'd see
Yeah,
it.
it makes me want to fire up the games again.
You're right.
I likely will, but no, I got my helmet back. At some point, I'll Dead Space is going to come back into my rotation, because I played it pretty hard for the first week when I first got it. I want to say I took it over like 3 times within the first week and a half. I was like, oh, that was so much fun. I missed you, baby. I missed you.
Now,
I
there's
love
one
this
movie
shit.
that comes a little bit later on after this. It's called Pandorum with Dennis Quaid. That one feels like it's trying to rip off this movie, to be honest, and it doesn't really work. I didn't really like that movie. But down the line, they tried to do another movie similar to like a cross between Dead Space and Event Horizon called Pandorum. It's okay, but it's not very good.
The movie that I could see the biggest parallels to with this movie is Rose Red. Like, it has scenes that are so very similar. The No Way Out and getting locked in is the same thing as the beginning of Rose Red. Like, once the little girl walks into the house and lights up the supernatural abilities, like, the door shuts and they can't get out as long as she's awake. And it was very similar. Like, the house is alive, the house is haunted, but still a living thing at the same time. Like, I don't want to say complicated. There were ghosts, but the thing was goddamn alive. Like, the ghosts were fleas or mites.
Do you speak English?
That's all I had.
One of our favorite guys from Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh, he's in it? Cooper, the guy that plays Cooper?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Yeah, I still haven't seen it. I didn't watch because I actually do want to revisit that, because I'm sure it's probably better than 90% of the stuff out there today, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he is one of the better parts of the show. Like, his character screws up a little bit here and there, but he's one of the better parts of the show.
Yeah. I want to say this is probably my favorite role of his, though, in this movie, because he has such a presence and charisma to him. I totally buy him, like, immediately right off. I almost didn't recognize him at first because I'm like, he's young and he's in real good shape. Like, what the fuck? When he's in Terminator, he's not necessarily in like 225 pounds, 6'2", and I'm gonna whip some ass.
Well, like you said, all of his line, like his stuff was natural too. His comedy, everything, it just came very natural. And yeah, just again, they all did great character work, especially since, like you were saying, Kev, there's not a whole lot of character building time in the movie, but the actors definitely do really well with the time that they got.
Yeah. And only a couple people had exposition, which was fine, because you
That's all you really need.
Yeah, you didn't need to hear Mr. Smith's backstory or even DJ's backstory. Wasn't really necessary. But others, yeah, Miller's, absolutely. Like, one of the things I was going to say when you guys were talking about his story was, you get an Oscar performance from Fish in this movie, like a cheap ass horror film that got no respect, still got an Oscar performance from one of the greatest actors of our generation. Like it was such a luck for this film. And it adds to the film. Like it gives it personality and flair that these actors can bring such great emotion to something, a type of movie that typically doesn't have emotion attached to it. Because you don't want to be attached to people in horror films necessarily. You just want them to die.
The body count matters, man.
And this movie had a body count of 3. So, again, much scarier than any other of the slasher films from the 90s with an 1/8 of the fucking body count.
And I can really agree with that. Now, overall, Justin, is this movie you were pretty satisfied with as a whole, or do you feel like you would like to see a complete version of this if it were possible? Because they've tried to find the print, they can't find it, and there's just a shitty copy out there somewhere.
Oh, I'd love to see the full version, especially because, like you said, if Clive Barker's involved, Clive Barker is just, man, he does some great stuff, like Nightbreed, the Midnight Meat Train. That's got the weirdest freaking. Yep, that's Clive Barker right there.
That's something unhandleable, dude. Oh, that was great.
So this scene here, he was still alive. They cut it out. He was still alive, and Miller had to shoot him to put him out of his misery. Oh,
shit.
That would have fucked audiences up.
Oh, that would have been dope. Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much cool shit they could have done with the full version of this for sure. But yeah, I still think it's like a 9 out of 10 for me. Like, I mean, it's really up there. Like I could if anyone ever says, "Hey, do you want to watch Event Horizon?" I'm never going to tell somebody no. You know, it's
agreed.
I wonder why you said yes right away when I said we were doing this movie.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Because it's rad. It's important. It really is. Like, to me, this saved horror. Like, sure, horror transitioned greatly after this. You still got your slasher movies, the really stupid, cheesy shit. But
I'll always know what you did last summer, Kevin.
I needed the money. But then you started getting James Wan making his movies that are PG-13, but they were still really viscerally scary. And those are okay, but it doesn't hold a candle to something like this where you're going to see gore and get like your flesh crawling because you see maggots eating a child's legs. Like, you didn't get that after this, and not so much before it like you got it in this, or you were supposed to get it in this. This movie had a lot of savagery to it, and reading up on it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's some great articles out there. And I guess one of my last questions would be is, do you think this movie would work today, Kevin?
Yes. So what I was thinking about when I was watching it is you know how I always hate anytime someone says, oh, there's going to be a remake of this, a remake of that. Remake Event Horizon. Let Paul make the movie that he wanted to make. Sure, you can get different actors, but remake the Event Horizon in the director's initial fucking vision. That would be awesome. If you can't get the original stuff, make new stuff, but the same way you did it before. It worked for Psycho.
Well, yeah, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, whichever of the 9 different remakes they did.
I like the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. That was really good.
Okay.
Psycho was like a scene for scene fucking remake.
Oh, that was Gus Van Sant's one. Yeah, that was fucking horrible, though.
That's why I say it worked for Psycho.
Yeah, I guess my opinion on it would be, if you're going to do something today and you couldn't get I wish there was a print they could find for this. I really do. But I never say this. This is probably going to be the only time I'll ever say this. They could always do a prequel. They could do the actual first crew and first mission of the Event Horizon that led to the events of this. I don't think they'll do that. And I even hate saying it because I'm not the biggest fan of prequels in general. But I think that would work for this, honestly, and be a great chance to give it another once over. And I think it would work today. Where it would go on which streaming service or theater, I don't know who would even own the rights. I would hope Paul does, but I'm pretty sure it's still Paramount. I got the Paramount 4K. I don't have the Scream Factory one with all the extras on it, but when they said they were going to put out a director's cut, I was interested. When they said, oh, we can't find any of the footage, and Paramount even helped look. It's like, well, I ain't buying your copy. I'm buying this instead. And to be honest, I think this cover looks totally badass. You got the skull going into the lightning, into the event horizon.
Oh, that's cool.
And the picture quality is fantastic. It really pops with those horrible 90s CGI scenes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think a prequel would work, though. You know, I mean, like you said, I don't know who would take it on, but yeah, I think it would be pretty cool. You know,
come on, Paul.
It worked for The Thing.
Yeah,
that was all right.
No, it wasn't. It fucking sucked.
You're talking about the Thing, the 2000 one or whatever.
Yeah, the 2011 one.
Oh yeah, that was horrible. Yeah.
I didn't hate it. I liked it, but it wasn't great. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was good. It would have been better if they had the original special effects in it.
Yeah, it's just kind of like I mean, obviously it's way different, but it's kind of like Ghostbusters, right? Not like, you know, without the wokeness and all that, but the fact that like when they do the all-girl version and they're just like da-da-da-da, and then they're just doing shit, whereas the initial movie explains how the packs work and the containment units, and it's just very detailed, and it's like that's the way the Thing, the remake feel, or the prequel, quote unquote, feels like. It's just rushed, and it just gets to this like where it's more methodical and again more cerebral, like this movie, as it's building to like the horror. And I just feel like I didn't really get that with the prequel version of the Thing. Or the remake.
Yeah.
Universal has never really like looked at their audience, their horror viewers, as being intelligent viewers. They're children, special children, like pressing a feed button. Paramount's kind of similar, and I think that's why you get stuff like that from Universal. It's like they don't care. People are going to pay to see it one way or the other. They don't care what the quality is that goes into it. And that's just really shitty because they have some wonderful fucking IPs. Paramount has some wonderful IPs. The fact that they went to agree to even look for this is amazing. And God help me for saying it, this is why Scorsese's foundation of film preservation is important. Like Jeff and I were talking about before, film can explode, like randomly fucking burst into flame and explode.
There's many films and many prints that have been lost to just random fires just because of poor storage conditions or just anything going wrong.
Yeah. And so many movies have been lost that way. And you figure if they could restore Monos to 4K level, why can't they do this?
Right.
Well, they did it with the producer's cut of Halloween Part 6, so can't say it can't be done. They apparently found a print and they did a 4K scan of that just fine.
I'll watch that. I still need to get that box set too. Anyway,
number 6, is that the one with Paul Rudd?
Yep.
Yeah.
The one where Jamie dies, but it's not Jamie. So.
Yeah.
The young Jamie that was quote unquote having somebody's baby that rhymes with Michael Myers. Not one of the finer moments of that franchise.
Well, neither is the reboot.
Oh god. That's a whole other 0 Point we could go on.
That was horrible shit. Like they should all be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah,
Blumhouse for you.
So the last one, what ends? Oh my god! After that, like Terrifier 2 came out, and I'm like, yes, Art the Clown could be the new Michael Myers. Fuck Michael Myers at this point, you know.
Ends just killed it for me. I'm like, I'm out. They could reboot it. They could do whatever. I'm done now.
Yeah, I was kind of done with the second of the three, like about halfway through. I'm like, fuck this shit. But my wife and kids wanted to see the rest of it, so I let it ride out. But yeah, it was terrible.
Well,
Evil dies tonight.
well, the original idea was for the first half of Halloween Kills, and the last half of Halloween Ends was supposed to be a movie in and of itself. And when COVID hit, they had to split and divert and do things a little differently. So they fleshed out Halloween Kills, set aside half the other footage for Halloween Ends. And they ended up making 2 movies out of what was supposed to be 1 movie. That whole side character that got introduced in Ends at the beginning, Corey Cunningham, he was not originally in that script. That was completely shoehorned in at the last minute.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that's why that movie, the whole thing fucking fell apart because of that. And it's like, that stupid writer, I want him nowhere. I want Blumhouse nowhere near my favorite franchises no more. Well, they killed Exorcist. They killed Halloween Ends. What's next? I mean, stick to the new IPs. They can mess with those just fine.
I told you, man, as soon as Ellen Bernstein said that she was in it for the money, I told you that movie was going to suck ass. Like, she flat out admitted it. I told them I wanted this much for my school, and I will come back and do whatever they want me to do.
And she did.
Yeah, I don't know what they did. I won't watch it. I've no desire to see it. Like, it's apparently so bad that I'm like, we'll just put that up there with part 2. Yeah, I can't stand what they do to movies, and it sucks. I love that we have the movies that we had in the past. The older I get, the more I find that not every new entry into a franchise is going to be for us anymore.
Yeah, I am not the target demo.
No.
Yeah. That Exorcist movie was horrible. You're talking about the last one?
Believer.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was horrendous. That may be one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. It was
I can't do
terrible.
it. I can't watch it.
Well, see, last year we covered the TV series, and the first season's okay. Probably a lot better than what this movie was.
Yeah.
And then season 2 was just phenomenal. Like, if they couldn't have made a movie as good as season 2, then they were shit. They ain't working with the right fucking people.
Yeah, they got the wrong people on this. But hey, stay away from Event Horizon, and nobody's going to get hurt. So let's keep it that way.
Let's keep it that way. Let's keep it off that 0 Point. But going back to Exorcist, there is a point where Weir is chasing God, what's Richardson's name in this?
Smitty?
I can't think of her name.
No, that was Pertwee. I wrote it down here somewhere.
I know. I'm looking at my notes. That's
Stark.
Yes.
Not Tony.
Yeah.
And not spelt the same as Tony. It's got a C in it. Apparently, they did an homage to the spider crawl or the crab crawl from the Exorcist, one of the deleted scenes. That's incredibly terrifying. Yeah, and he like spider crawls upside down the ladder.
Down the ladder. Yeah. I saw that on the deleteds. Yeah.
Woo! I would have wanted to see that. Like, that just sounds cool.
No, I'm gonna have to go searching out some of this.
That's what I told Jeff. So like this movie and well, it wasn't this movie, but when I saw the remake of The Exorcist, when they added the spider crawl, it was me and my ex, and freaking like literally nobody else was in the theater, dude. It was like fucking. It was pretty fucking crazy, dude. This movie's like there was people there, but I think it was very limited amount of people too. So yeah, it was just eerie. But yeah, that would have been a cool scene for them to have. Like I said, if they did a full version of this, I don't see how it could have been not have been a lot better. Not to say it's bad, but I think it would have only enhanced it.
If they would have kept it as fucked up as it was, it could have been one of the better horror films in horror history. But the way it got dissected, you're just kind of like, well, that's okay. And at this point, I don't even think a lot of people think that. I think that people watch the fucking CG in it and they're like, this sucks. I don't know that people are really finding that underlying plot and the terror that's actually happening in this.
It's definitely there. I always think like, do you class it? I mean, obviously it's cosmic horror. So, I mean, I love H.P. Lovecraft horror movies. Most of them are in the 80s, but it's like, I mean, I assume this is classified as one, but it doesn't have
I
like
think
some
so.
of the tropes and elements of it. But yeah, I mean, it technically is cosmic horror and it's interdimensional evil basically. So yeah, I think it kind of meets the criteria.
Well, it does the whole older than time bit, or the entity older than time, better than Prince of Darkness, but it's still not explained at all. Like it's implied, and then you have to find out reading the FAQs in IMDb. You're like, oh, they went that shit too. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
There's lots of fun homages, but again, the really fun ones aren't taken, or this doesn't take a whole lot like ripping things off. They are generally homages. When you see things that take from this, they are straight up taking things from it. And that's not bad. That's not bad. Like Dead Space, we talked about that. Dead Space is phenomenal. They took everything this movie couldn't do and did. Like they make a video game with no fucking noise, except for your heartbeat and the sound of the monsters coming after you with 0G. So there's no sound. Like it was brilliant.
They should make a video game for this movie.
I thought you were going to say they should make a video game out of Dead Space. I was like, yeah.
I mean, I think it would work. I mean, they've done Alien Isolation, they've done Dead Space, they've done Callisto Protocol. I don't know what you do for monsters, though. It'd almost have to be a bit different of a video game. A little more Silent Hill-ish, I want to say. Unless, Dead Space.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I gave Alien Isolation an hour last week, and I didn't see an alien, and I didn't kill anything. So I'm like, next time.
Better luck next time.
Kinda. Like, I was down to find out what happens to Amanda Ripley, because you don't really find out in Aliens. You just find out that like she's like 60 or 70 at that point. So a story about her would have been neat, and I'm sure it probably is. I just didn't want to dedicate the time to doing a fucking Maniac Mansion in space.
Well, don't worry. If rumors are to be believed, you might get a little bit of that information in Alien Romulus later this year.
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe.
That's cool.
It's all rumors. Nobody really knows what the fuck's going on in that movie.
Nobody knows what's going on in most Alien movies, not since part 2.
Yeah. Fair point.
Yeah, it kind of falls in that Terminator, Predator, Alien category. Like the first two are acceptable. First two are acceptable, and the rest of them are not. I mean, you can make exceptions, I guess, here and there.
Varying degrees.
Yeah, right.
I hate it.
All right, Kevin, you got any more slides for us before we start wrapping this up?
Yeah, I think I kind of do. Let's see here. Peter's death. Her death was a lot of fun. Like we said, the ship luring her, like God knows how high up, seeing her son that's in a wheelchair but running away from her, and she's basically powerless to not chase it. Again, the ship makes you see things, makes you believe things, and then lets go of that control over you right before you die. And it does that right here with her as she's about to fucking fall. And then it shows her fall and hit herself on several things on the way down.
Yeah,
and she
no
doesn't
kidding.
die until this part here. She just,
I love the scoring.
Yeah.
just totally fucks up the landing. The suicide scene, I don't know if anybody caught it, but there was a small Easter egg. Oh gosh,
Rotation devices. Gotcha.
Up in the upper left hand corner, it appears it is written on in her blood.
Oh,
yeah. My question to this scene, though, like a legitimate question is, and I enjoyed this as a kid because, again, boobies. why is she wearing granny panties to kill herself? Like,
Good question.
isn't that reason enough to kill you? Anyway,
Kevin with the hard-hitting questions.
They put
Right.
that in for the ratings, or the rating from being NC-17.
Heaven forbid it be flesh-colored, and then you can't really tell the difference anyway.
Right. Well, that's kind of like a two-handed homage, right? Because isn't that kind of like The Shining? She ends up being the one coming out the bathtub in The Shining, and then the ship manipulating people, kind of like The Shining. Also, well, obviously his is slow and methodical, and just Jack Nicholson's character, but yeah, kind of like a double
blood
shot.
exploding.
Oh God, that scene was dope.
Yeah, it really was. Well, Weir was supposed to be like regenerating in there, like Uncle Frank from Hellraiser.
Okay.
Yeah.
And apparently they ran out of budget for that, and so it got cut. It's like, oh, God damn it. Fucking first 5 seconds.
Give Paul Anderson the Marvel budget of like $250-300 million and watch him see what he could do with another fucking Event Horizon movie.
Yeah, well, one of my friends was saying it's a great suggestion. I mean, they're so busy like destroying all the fucking IPs that we like and all these big budget IPs. But if somebody actually went back to a lot of the 80s movies, especially horror, that were they didn't have the budget for, and that doesn't mean you got to go spend $200 million on them. You just kick the budget up a little bit. You could probably remake a lot of great movies because the creativity in the 80s was definitely there. The passion was there. I mean, that's what's kind of lacking in all the movies of the modern age, you know? So a lot of it, they just didn't have either the budget or they didn't have the technology to do it. And if you rely still heavy on the practical and just use the CGI as needed, you know, in a limited scope, you can get some really good movies.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
so. I just CG's gotten a hell of a lot better than it was back here, but
you can be fooled on some movies, though.
Yeah, but nothing will ever replace practical effects. Like what we talked about with Swamp Thing, the marriage of the two, CGI and practical, was just they did it so well. Like, that's where you're like, CGI is not that bad. Like, it has its place. Not here though. This her eyes being gone or something else, and all I could think of is every time it showed her boobs and like her empty eyes is like, this is how handicap fetishes start, isn't it? Like, this is like straight up skullduggery. Like,
we don't kink shame on this podcast.
No,
that's
but
for you, Tobias.
If anyone at home doesn't know what skullduggery is, go look that one up. And then the last thing I had is one of the last images from the movie. This is one of the most beautiful images I've seen in a horror film in general. Like, the lighting is fantastic. The blood all over her is fantastic. It's like the way Hannibal describes blood in the moonlight, how it's not really red, it's like brown. And the deadness in her eyes after just watching Miller go to hell and her crew get mutilated. Like, her emptiness there is just beautiful. It was almost a poetic scene for me. Granted, it's like very tragic, but still it was beautiful. And that's all I have.
Very, very nice. And Justin, got any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Well, I mean, going back to the very beginning of the movie with the whole Paramount sign fading into red and shit like that. Like, I don't know.
I forgot about that.
That's just like a little thing, but it's like, oh, it just sets the mood, like the tone, like, oh, this shit's fucking already different, you know?
They don't do that kind of thing no more. Oh.
And the sound design on it is really good, man. We just got a new sound bar, so when I rewatched it and put that into the system, it sounded awesome, man. It was really good, and that beginning scene, you know, with the station and the cinematography on that, like, there's just a lot of good things that they, you know, just top notch when it comes to like movie production, you know, especially with, again, what they had. So yeah, those are two things that really stood out just right off the beginning.
Yeah, I have my surround sound going in my movie room here. I mean, they're tiny speakers, but they were they were working a little bit when I was watching the movie, and I'm like, what? I kept looking around. I'm like, I don't always have like the best movies playing. Lately, I'm mostly watching like Married with Children and like to try and decompress before going to sleep at night. So it's usually like all speakers are playing the same thing. Then I put on a movie like this that actually has full surround sound going on. It's like, what the hell? That's right, I have surround sound in here.
It's a good lesson too. If you ever have somebody that thinks they know Latin, make sure they actually know how to speak Latin, right? Because I believe the message was instead of save me, it was save yourself from hell, and they translated it incorrectly or something in the beginning. So yeah, that's something you should always watch out for.
Yeah, right. If you hear somebody speaking Latin and they're screaming in the background, just leave.
Yeah, right.
Yep, because that never ends well, like at all.
No.
All right, Justin, where can people find you? And thank you for joining us again.
I'm on Twitter, newly on Twitter, and then just YouTube. My channel is Star Wars Marvel Purist, as listed below. I try to do live streams on Mondays, and generally my fallback day is Wednesday. And then I'm trying to drop like a video daily when I can, but you know, I do it when I can. When I can't, it's usually every other day.
Yep. Most of us are working, so we're trying to all figure out the schedule.
Exactly.
Break the algorithm down.
That's it.
All right, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. We really enjoyed everybody having us around this time for Event Horizon. Please hit that like button down below. Comment. What are some of your favorite moments of this movie? Any favorite memories or not so favorite memories? I want to hear it, so put it down below. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification. We are working towards 500, so please come and join us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you all next time. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at SunsAndShadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.